G'day, welcome to the Nerdy Dad channel and the Nerdy Dad review of the final episodes of the Legend of Vox Machina Season 1. I've taken a little longer to put this review together, but I've reviewed the rest of the season, so I still wanted to put this review out there. I will be discussing the content of these episodes in this review, so consider this your spoiler warning. Are you still with us? Here we go. I'll start with my overall impressions. The episodes were good. I enjoyed them. On a second viewing, I liked them even more. But I didn't love them with the same intensity as I have the first 9. I don't know whether I just built the series up so much in my head that the final episodes just couldn't live up to my expectations, or if there's some other reason I didn't like them as much, such as the inevitable muting of the humour as we got to the heart of the series and the drama took centre stage. In no way were these episodes bad or unenjoyable. I'm just not as over the moon with the series as I have been, and I can't put my finger on why. Into the breakdown of the individual episodes, and we start this week with episode 10, Depths of Deceit. The episode starts with a flashback showing us why Percy wants Dr. Ripley dead. I have to say, for all that there are other things going on with Percy, he has more than enough demons of the psychological kind that are reason enough to want these people dead. Useful though Dr. Ripley may be, she literally tortured the DeRollos, and it took Cassandra, who had every bit as much reason to want Ripley dead as Percy, to make him back down. After he does back down though, we, through Pike, get our best look at his metaphysical demon to date. But clearly the hatred and the need for revenge that is amplified by the demon is already there, and understandably so. Now, I actually like Dr. Ripley as a counterpoint to Percy. I do find it interesting that she developed, or at least tried to develop, a very similar weapon to Percy, although it looks like she failed. I wonder if that's how she lost a hand, and I equally wonder if Percy would have been able to develop his signature weapon without the demon's help. There's a quick glimpse of the wider rebellion here that reminds us that there's more going on than a revenge mission. However, the real stakes of these 3 episodes, if not the entire arc, are the personal stakes for Percy, and while this scene is probably necessary, we thankfully don't stay with it for long, and the focus quickly shifts back to Vox Machina, where we get some quiet time as they traverse the passages under the castle, where the show focuses on these characters and their relationships. Look, I thought the back and forth with Grog and Pike was so sweet, and the conversation between Vex and Vax was absolutely necessary, given what comes later. To me, the only thing of note in the crypt was Grog. Grog was Grog. Somehow maniacal and childlike at the same time. And that leads us to the Residium refinery. A charming looking room that feels as much like a prison as a manufacturing plant to me. To my knowledge, this is the first time that Percy's gun added a name, which until this point I thought was a set list, a contract of sorts. But this time it was the first sign of who had betrayed them. And Vax is also charmed again, and forced to betray his sister and his friends. But after Percy snaps out of his shock at Cassandra's betrayal, the group eventually manages to escape the acid, but only because Grog is insane. Calith's words, not mine. With that, we run towards the 11th episode of the series, Whispers at the Ziggurat. I have to say that I like the design of the Ziggurat. Percy has to wrestle with his demons when he is forced to let Dr. Ripley go to avoid giving away their position. At this point, she has become one of a number of threads that have been left dangling for future seasons. As the penultimate episode of this series, a large amount of the episode is dedicated to a battle between the Briarwoods with their charmed allies, and Vox Machina, including the 2 emotional sibling matchups between Vex and Vax, and between Percy and Cassandra. The battle was fun to watch, but I don't have a lot more to say about it. The heroes ultimately won the day, and they killed Silas, which releases the charmed siblings. The desperate Delilah is eventually cornered in the Ziggurat. She casts a spell with the intention of killing Vex, but Calith jumps in front of it. Delilah's ritual appears to fail to bring the Whispered One through, but it creates an orb which seems to have created an anti-magic field that makes Pike's astral form disappear, And this is where we leave that episode, with Caliph still dying. The final episode of the season is The Darkness Within. Scanlan is quick to figure out that the orb is what's causing the magic not to work. But as Vox Machina leaves the ziggurat to get away from the orb, Grog finds a possible thread for next season in Silas's sword. We've seen that thing's magical, and we've seen that thing thirst for blood. And when a magical weapon thirsts for blood, that is rarely a good thing. With the antagonist of most of the season defeated, the episode's title refers to Percy's darkness. The episode grapples with what was clouding Percy's soul, but not at a temple, as he promised Pike back in episode 10. He's still out for blood, but this time he's not just crossing a name off his list. He fully intends to torture Delilah. And when Scanlan points out to Percy that this might be a little bit too far, it's the demon that attacks him. Vex and the rest of Vox Machina battle with the demon for Percy's soul. But in the end, that battle is Percy's alone. The demon asks Percy, which is more powerful, the desire for revenge or the ability to forgive? And that's not an easy question, especially given what Percy has faced. It was Percy's rage that invited the demon in. Subconsciously, he made the bargain. He wanted revenge, no matter what the cost. But in the end, there were people who cared for him. And that was what made the cost too high. Percy forgives Delilah to save his soul. But Cassandra, who'd been controlled for years, did not. On a practical note, that threat, not to mention that storyline, had to be wrapped up. And that's that. Whitestone is saved, and because we can't have Percy leave Vox Machina, Cassandra becomes its leader. And then we start to get the setup for the future seasons. Setup number 1, the orb is still very much in play, and apparently it does more than create an anti-magic field. Setup number 2, Vox Machina return to their keep to face the music from the events of episodes 3 and 4. The Sovereign steps down, and the government changes from a monarchy to an oligarchy. But, more importantly for next season, over the horizon come a flight of dragons. That's right, having crawled out of a dungeon, the season leaves Vox Machina once again facing dragons. Now, despite my more muted response this week, particularly to episode 11, this series is so much fun. On the whole, I've enjoyed every episode of the season from start to finish. The characters are fantastic, and for this show in particular, it's the characters, not the plot, that really makes the show. At the start of the series, when I was first learning who these characters were, I didn't think Scanlan was going to land with me. I thought Percy and Vax were more my speed. But almost everything that comes out of Scanlan's mouth makes me laugh out loud, and I can't wait to see what he comes out with next. I also can't wait to see what those guys over at Critical Role do with another season. This is the Nerdy Dad, signing off.